adding in Lisa Bush. But good to see you all. This is my first Instagram live, and I know, oh, there's Lisa. Hi.
Hi. Hey, everyone.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I was just saying this is our first Instagram live.
It is. I'm
Um,
excited.
yeah, so hopefully the technology works and everyone can hear us okay. I thought we could just start with brief introductions and then we'll get into our topic of our time together, really on how do we boost our metabolism as we age. And there is one secret, kind of one secret sauce to really maximizing and improving our metabolism. So we're going to get into that. But I am Robyn. Most of you know me, but for those that don't, I've been in corporate healthcare for about 20 years in both pharmaceuticals and the surgery space. I also am a gym owner with my husband. I have three kids, three boys that are very active, and recently got certified through the Institute of Integrated Nutrition as a health and nutrition coach, and then also with the Faster Way as a fitness and nutrition coach. And I also teach group exercise classes and just love all things health. And Lisa and I met through our IIN training last year and actually had an opportunity to run a wellness retreat together for women, which was amazing. But now I'll let you do a little introduction on yourself, Lisa.
Thanks, Robin. So my name is Lisa. I am a physician assistant and have been for 14 years now. Before that, I was actually a research scientist. Um, I work primarily in bariatric and metabolic surgery right now, and a part of the mainstay of my job is really helping people who are interested in losing weight make the lifestyle and dietary changes they need to help facilitate that. And I'm also very passionate about health and fitness. I've had my own struggles after I had long COVID, and it really messed with my metabolism, not being able to work out for a couple of years. And now I'm in the process of getting that all back.
Wonderful. Well, happy to have you today. Well,
Thanks.
we're gonna talk about all things metabolism. So let's just start off by saying what happens to our metabolism as we start to age. So I'm 45. I know in the last 5 years my body has changed a lot where I
Yeah.
can't get away with the same things that I used to be able to get away with. So what is happening physiologically in our bodies that's kind of causing things to slow down?
Yeah, so one thing, especially women in our 40s and 50s, there's a lot of hormonal changes that are happening with estrogen and things like that. But one of the main culprits to the decline in our metabolism is loss of muscle mass, which is a normal part of aging that we can thwart. But there's a term called sarcopenia, which basically means the loss of muscle mass and muscle fibers. And as we lose muscle, our metabolism slows because muscle is one of the things that naturally burns more calories and is involved in many metabolic processes in our bodies.
Absolutely. So is that part of the reason why we gain weight like in our midsection? Like a lot of women, I guess even men, it like they put on the pounds in their abdomen. Does that have to do with this loss of muscle as well?
Yeah, it certainly can. What many people don't know is muscle takes up about 80% of the glucose or sugar that our body uses. The less muscle we have, right, the less of that is being taken up to be used by your system. And then the more insulin you have circulating in your system. And insulin resistance is one of the signals that tells your body to store fat, especially around your abdomen. So the less muscle that you have over time, the more likely you are to become insulin resistant and start storing those calories around your middle. Estrogen does play a role in women and storage around the abdomen, but lack of muscle is a huge part of it.
Absolutely. So it sounds like maintaining muscle gets harder as
It
we get older
does.
naturally.
You have to work
Um,
for it.
you gotta work for it. Well, let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. So if somebody is noticing that their metabolism is slowing down, they
hmm
probably are losing muscle mass.
hmm
What are some of the strategies that they can implement to really help boost their metabolism and start to build lean muscle?
Uh, so I would say protein and iron meaning weights. So I would increase protein intake, and we can talk about the amounts that that would take too. And I would start lifting weights and lift heavy, right? So you're lifting till you can only get like 6 or 8 reps. Because you need to create little micro tears and break down the muscle a little bit for it to build new muscle. And you need to make sure that you're getting adequate enough protein to not only maintain the muscle that you have, but add additional muscle.
Absolutely. So let's talk about adequate levels of protein.
Yeah.
And our audience is mostly
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's say average female, 45 years old. How
Mhm.
much protein are we talking to actually build muscle?
So there are varying levels. So you could say, 1 point, well, it varies depending on the person. So 1 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram. So if you're like a 140-pound female, that's probably around 100 grams of protein a day. And we want it in, like 30 grams or more per meal. The reason for that is that the signal for muscle protein synthesis in your body is not triggered until you hit that 30-gram threshold of protein. So you really want to, especially your first meal of the day and your last meal of the day, there's a whole signaling pathway called mTOR. And I don't want to get into the weeds on it, but just know that that magic number to start that protein synthesis is 30 grams of protein. So if you break it down and are having at least 30 grams of protein per each meal, you should be hitting that target.
I think that's a super important point. I know for a long time I was having like 2 eggs and vegetables at breakfast, and
Same. Me
I
too.
thought I was having a great breakfast. Well,
Yeah.
that's 12 grams of protein. That is
Yeah.
not enough
Yeah.
protein. So now I'll have 2 eggs and a protein shake with
Right.
veggies and fruit and
Yep.
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Um, so I think especially that first meal when you're breaking your fast, how
Yeah.
important it is to have at least 30 grams,
Yes.
and even potentially 40 or more if you can at the
Yeah.
first meal. Awesome. So protein, super important.
Very
Lifting
much.
weights, super important. Let's also talk about though balancing your macros because I think this is
Yeah.
important. I'm actually working with a client right now who, and I think this is typical, where they're so focused on protein and they're trying to really reduce and almost eliminate carbs. And then
Yeah.
there's a stigma that carbs are bad and fat's bad, but we know that
Yeah.
that's not true. So can you talk about
No.
the importance of really eating balanced? And when I talk
Yeah.
about macros, we're talking about fat, fiber, protein, and carbohydrates.
Yeah, so we all need fats. They're important for synthesis of multiple hormones and things in our body. So, I think it's been debunked the low fat thing, and I recommend having healthy fats, like fats that come from avocados or salmon. Um, uh, Fats that have high omega-3 contents, egg yolks are a thing that have that too. Another thing is carbohydrates, right? Carbs are not the devil. I I just want people to have non-processed, non-refined carbs. So like sweet potatoes, things like quinoa. Um, and I also recommend having a carb that's packaged in fiber, right? So like apples, any kind of fruit is an example of this. And then I always tell people to give your carbs a buddy, right? So make sure you're eating some sort of protein with your carbohydrates. But carbs are not evil. And you may notice that if you're working out a lot and you're starting to poop out, that you actually need to increase the number of carbohydrates that you're taking in.
Absolutely. That was huge for me. So I got
Yeah.
a continuous glucose monitor and I was trying to basically keep my blood sugar like level.
Hmm.
And I cut carbs way back and I was exhausted, especially in the afternoon. I would
Yeah.
crash. It's like, what's going on? I'm eating so healthy. I'm exercising. I'm doing all the things. And I realized I was not getting enough I wasn't even close
Yeah.
to how many carbohydrates my body needed. And even like for brain, like having brain fog and
Hmm.
like the mental energy for like all the things I have to get done, I was just feeling completely wiped out. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And people will tell you when they go keto that they've got like the carb flu, right? You feel terrible when you first go keto. So, I really, I agree with you 100% that like, carbs are not bad and people need to balance their macros and make sure you're getting enough and also listen to your body, right? If you feel terrible, um, try increasing your carbs or try tracking. I tell my patients this every day, right? If you can't change what you don't measure,
Mhm.
right? So if you're not tracking your calories, a lot of times people aren't getting enough calories, right? Our whole lives we've been told restrict, restrict, restrict. Your metabolism slows itself down when you are not getting adequate calories. So I really encourage people to avoid being overly restrictive as
That
well.
That was my next question,
Oh,
which I
yay.
think is super important too. So the old adage of like work out more, like more cardio,
No,
and then calorie reduction and restriction does not work,
right.
especially for women in your 40s. It's going to do the
Right.
opposite. So tell us a little bit about what's happening when we were depriving our bodies.
So one thing, it's a protective mechanism, right? That's genetically encoded into us over thousands of years, right? If you severely decrease the number of calories, you'll initially lose weight, but then your body will slow its metabolism down so that you actually burn fewer calories or need fewer calories in order to survive. It's so that you don't die, right? Your body doesn't want you to starve to death. But often what happens when people severely restrict, right, and they gain that weight back and put on 25 more pounds is if they were eating 1,500 calories a day and they go down to 800, right? Their body's going to slow their metabolism down to say only burn 1,000 calories a day. And then they're like, oh, I lost my 20 pounds. I'm going to go back to eating my 1,500 calories a day. Well, your body only needs 1,000 calories a day now. So that extra, the 500 calories is now extra. So you end up putting on more weight. Um, so that's how restriction can kind of bite you.
Yeah.
Um, Also, when you overtrain, talking about overtraining, if you are on the treadmill for hours a day and just killing yourself, you are going to increase the cortisol levels in your body. Cortisol levels increase your glucose levels, which increases your insulin, which tells your body to store fat. So,
Mhm.
um, overtraining can be very detrimental. People, need to people need to be active and they need to be moving, right? But they don't need to be going all out every day. And I think we'll talk about a balance of cardio and weight training and what's kind of the optimal way to do it.
Yes, that's my next question. So,
Oh yeah,
for those of us that are busy, we don't have time to spend hours in the
yeah.
gym either. What's the most kind of efficient exercise routine that can really help boost metabolism by building lean muscle mass and also burning fat?
Yeah, so I very strongly recommend weight training at least 3 days a week, and training all muscle groups, and whether you alternate those on different days, and lifting heavy. I kind of touched upon that before, getting to where you're only getting like 6 or 8 reps of something in, because that's how you're actually going to build and add new muscle. And then I recommend to most people getting some form of movement in on a daily basis, like aiming for 10,000 steps if you can, or doing some sort of zone 2 training, right? Which is where you're getting your heart rate elevated, but not to the point where you're in like anaerobic state. You can breathe, you can talk, you can carry on a full conversation with whatever form of cardio you're doing.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I do. I do 3 days of strength. I do 2 days of like a Tabata hit, and then I try to walk
Yeah.
between, do a little
Yeah.
yoga. So
Yeah.
awesome. And then my last question for you is like, what role does lifestyle factors like stress and sleep play in maintaining our metabolism as we age as well?
Yeah, those are also two very important things, and two of the biggest culprits that I see in my patients that are struggling with their weight loss is, people are doing things like shift work and their sleep patterns are alternating all the time. Sleep is very important in your body being able to do things like build muscle and repair vital functions, and allow your brain to kind of recharge as well. Stress is also very important, as I touched upon earlier with cortisol, is that when your cortisol levels are persistently elevated, so is your glucose and your insulin, and you tend to store calories and not have weight loss with that if that's something that you're trying to achieve. And then with the increased cortisol and insulin, people just start seeing they get a little fluffy around the middle. So those types of things, you know, in our practice, you and I, we talk about our optimal wellness, right? And it very much includes things like stress management and sleep. It is not just diet and exercise; those are two very important things, but it is your whole person that you got to take care of.
Absolutely. 100%. We hear it more and more about mental health too,
Yeah,
but I think a big part of that is stress management.
yeah,
And I think women in their 40s have a lot on their plate with career and kids, potentially taking care of
yes,
parents. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. So I think it's something we have to be really intentional about managing.
yeah. I agree 100%.
Awesome. We're almost done. One last question.
Yay!
We got through our first one.
I know.
So you and I are both doing the Faster Way to
Yeah,
Fat Loss program. It's something that I've done twice, and now I'm actually leading a group. Would love to get your thoughts on how this really aligns with the building muscle, the aligning your macros, and really optimizing your health.
yeah, you know, one thing I really like about Faster Way is that it incorporates all the things that we are trying to tell my patients to do for, you know, metabolic weight loss to either avoid or become qualified to have surgery, right? So there are things that can be very effective, like is it like a combination of intermittent fasting, um, eating whole foods, balanced meals with balanced macros, carb cycling. Which is really great. For example, on your low carb days, you're doing a high intensity workout. And the premise behind that is that depletes your glycogen stores, which then sends your body into accessing fatty tissue for energy. So it was a really intentional program that it's incorporating those strength workouts on most days and focusing on building lean muscle, which ultimately is what is going to result in fat loss, right? We're not talking about weight loss, we're talking about fat loss. So I really believe in what the Faster Way is doing. It's a really great program.
Yeah, I agree. I think the big things for me was figuring out my ideal macros.
Yeah,
I was eating healthy. I was eating whole foods for the most
yeah,
part. I was not eating the right balance of macros for my body.
yeah,
I was pretty good on protein, but I wasn't eating enough. I was eating a lot of fat, healthy fat, but a lot of fat, and I was way under consuming carbohydrates.
yeah,
Like I was eating half of the carbohydrates that I should be eating.
yeah,
So I'm actually eating more and I'm working out like probably about the same, but I'm being more intentional about my workouts. And I'm feeling so much stronger. Like I'm seeing
yeah.
definition. And I've been
Same.
working out my whole life pretty much, but
Yeah,
I'm seeing definition. And I'm not doing it for weight loss, but I've already lost a few pounds. I'm feeling way more energized. My energy levels are more consistent throughout the day as well. I'm also sleeping better,
yeah,
which has been fantastic. So, and it's nice to have the meal plans and meal suggestions
yeah.
too that are
That's
aligned
very
to
helpful.
macros.
Yeah, that's
So
helpful. I like that you can auto-populate it too. Like if you make the meals, you can just add everything to your tracker, so you don't
yes,
have to manually enter everything. I
absolutely.
like that. So,
Well, thank you so much, Lisa.
yeah,
Thank you for
thanks.
those that tuned in on our first IG Live.
Yay!
Where can people find out more information, or if they want to work with you as a health coach, how can they find out more about you?
So they can go to the website, optimalwellnessnw.com. We have both of our links on there and our link to our next retreat, which we now have a date for. Very exciting this March. Or they can find me on Instagram at optimalwellnessnw. And I'm also on Facebook as Lisa Bush. If so, feel free to send me a message.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. Great to
Thanks,
see you.
Robyn.
Thank you,
You too.
everyone. Have a fabulous Thursday.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.